As I'm recording this, more than 200,000 homes across Wisconsin and Illinois have no power. A tornado tore through the middle of one Wisconsin city this afternoon. Hail the size of a grapefruit, over 4 inches across, fell from the sky in a way that has happened only 6 times in that entire state since 1950. And this is not the end of it. It is the middle of it. What's hitting the country right now is not one storm. It is a siege, round after round after round, days deep, and it is being driven by a single feature in the atmosphere that has been sitting over America and refusing to move. Most of the coverage you've seen today is treating each city, each tornado, each power outage as its own separate event. They are not separate. They are one machine, and once I show you how it works, you'll understand not just what already happened, but what is coming next, and who is still in the path. Let me start with what's confirmed on the ground right now, because it tells you how serious this is. The National Weather Service has confirmed a tornado moving through Menasha, Wisconsin, with witnesses reporting power flashes and a radar-confirmed debris ball as it also struck parts of Appleton. Tornado damage was reported near Neenah and Chilton. Storm survey teams are already fanning out across the state, documenting a swath of destruction from pulverized trees to downed power lines across 4 counties. In one city, an entire transmission line went down and took the power for the whole town with it. And then there's the hail. In Gresham, Wisconsin, hailstones bigger than 4 inches across, the size of a grapefruit, were reported. According to the National Weather Service, that is only the 6th time since 1950 that hail that large has been documented anywhere in Wisconsin. Sit with that number for a second. In 76 years of record keeping, hail this size has shown up half a dozen times. Today was one of them. By early afternoon, that same line of storms had reached the Chicago metro. Tornado warnings went up across Cook, DuPage, and Will counties in Illinois, and Porter and Lake counties in northwest Indiana. Midway Airport clocked a 70-mile-an-hour gust just after noon. Baseball-sized hail was reported in Bolingbrook. 2 contractors were trapped in a storm sewer in Downers Grove. Nearly 800 flights were canceled at O'Hare. Across Wisconsin and Illinois combined, the outages climbed above 200,000. That is not a forecast. That already happened today, over just a few hours, and it is one day of a multi-day event. So the question that actually matters is, why? Why is this happening? Why is it happening in round after round? And how do you know where it goes next? For that, you have to look up, well above the storms, at the one feature running this entire show. Here is the whole thing in a single sentence. There is a massive dome of high pressure parked over the central and southern United States. It will not move, and everything violent is happening on its edge. Let me make that make sense, because it's the key that unlocks the rest of this video, and it takes about a minute. A dome of high pressure is a region where air is sinking. Sinking air warms and dries out, which kills clouds and traps heat near the ground. That's why directly under the center of one of these domes, you get a brutal, still, cloudless heat wave. And in fact, that's exactly what the middle of the country has been baking under for days. Chicago hit the upper 80s today with oppressive humidity, and the Weather Prediction Center has been flagging a dangerous, prolonged heat wave across the southern and central U.S. that runs into this week. But a dome of high pressure is not a wall sitting still. It's a circulation. In the northern hemisphere, air flows clockwise around a high. So the dome has an outer edge, a rim, where the wind is moving fast, and that rim is where all the energy goes. Hold on to that word, the rim, because you're going to see it do the same thing over and over. On the northern and eastern edge of this particular dome, that clockwise flow becomes a fast river of wind pouring down out of Canada and across the northern states. Forecasters call it northwest flow. And what makes it so dangerous is what it flows into. The hot, wet, unstable air that's been cooking under the edge of the dome all day. When you drop fast wind on top of unstable air, you create shear, wind that changes speed and direction as you climb. And shear is the single ingredient that turns an ordinary afternoon thunderstorm into an organized, rotating monster that can survive for hours, throw grapefruit-sized hail, and drop a tornado. That is the machine. The dome bakes the air to load it with fuel. The rim of the dome delivers the wind that organizes that fuel into violent, long-lived storms. And because the dome isn't moving, the rim keeps firing new rounds into the same regions, day after day. That's why this is a siege and not a single storm. Now let me show you exactly how much fuel was in the air today, because the number is genuinely alarming. Forecasters measure the instability in the atmosphere, the fuel for storms, with something called CAPE. You don't need the full physics, you just need the scale. A value around 1,000 means you can get thunderstorms. 2,000 is a setup for strong, organized, severe weather. Anything approaching 3,000 is the kind of high-octane environment that produces the worst outbreaks. This morning, weather balloons launched across the upper Midwest sampled values of 3,100, 2,900, and 2,800. The atmosphere over that region wasn't just primed, it was loaded to the top of the scale. That is why the hail got as big as it did, why the winds hit hurricane force out of thunderstorms, and why the Storm Prediction Center had drawn an enhanced risk, that's level 3 on their 5-level scale, across the Midwest and the Lake Michigan region, explicitly warning of damaging winds possibly exceeding 75 miles an hour. And here's the part I need you to understand. Because it's the difference between watching the news and actually being ahead of it, the fuel doesn't run out when the sun goes down. In a setup this unstable, the storms keep going into the night, and the dome that built all this is still there. Which brings us to who is in the path next. The threat is on the move. And it is not done with the country, it's just changing address. The same broad pattern that hammered the Great Lakes today is forecast to shove the severe weather threat eastward. The Storm Prediction Center and the Weather Prediction Center are pointing to the risk spreading from the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley toward the northeast over the next few days, with the mid-Atlantic squarely in the crosshairs next. Cities that were spectators today, from the Ohio Valley through the northern mid-Atlantic and into southern New England, move into the batter's box tomorrow. And the Weather Prediction Center has already flagged a moderate risk of excessive rainfall for the northern mid-Atlantic and southern New England as the next round arrives. That word, excessive rainfall, points to the second face of this siege, the one that gets less attention than tornadoes, but kills more people. Because these storms aren't just wind and hail, they are water. In the Chicago area today, as the storms trained over the same ground, flash flood warnings went up across Cook County and northern Illinois. The National Weather Service warned of 1 to 2 inches of rain per hour. Streets flooded. There was even a mudslide reported. The Weather Prediction Center added a flash flood risk covering the Chicago, Milwaukee, and Indianapolis metros, warning of an additional 2 to 5 inches on top of ground the storms had already soaked. Here's why rainfall rate matters more than rainfall total, and it's a distinction that saves lives. 2 inches of rain over a whole day is a wet day. 2 inches in a single hour over pavement that can't absorb it is water moving through places it doesn't normally go. Underpasses, low roads, storm sewers. Remember those 2 contractors trapped in a storm sewer in Downers Grove today? That is what a flash flood does. It turns infrastructure you walk past every day into a trap in a matter of minutes. And as this whole system shifts east, that flooding threat travels with it, into more densely populated corridors, over ground in the mid-Atlantic and northeast, that in some places is already saturated from an exceptionally wet, stormy July. The wind will make the headlines tomorrow. The water is what you actually have to respect. So let me put the whole board in front of you, because this is the part almost nobody is connecting. Today, it was the Great Lakes. Tornadoes, grapefruit hail, 200,000 without power. Underneath the center of the dome, the south and the central U.S. keep baking under a dangerous days-long heat wave. Tomorrow, the severe threat and the flooding push east into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. Every one of those is the same feature. One stubborn dome of high pressure, doing what it does on different parts of its edge on different days. It is not a run of bad luck. It is one machine, working its way across the country. Now, any time this much happens at once, this many disasters, this tightly clustered, a certain claim always shows up in the comments. That it isn't natural, that someone built this or steered it or engineered it. And I want to answer that head on with physics, because the instinct behind it isn't stupid. It genuinely does look coordinated. Grapefruit hail, a tornado, a heat wave, and a flood, all in the same 48 hours. Your brain is built to find intention in a pattern like that. There's even a name for it: apophenia, the tendency to see a plan in events that only appear connected. But the connection here is real, and it's meteorological, not deliberate. And the reason it cannot be manufactured comes down to raw energy. The dome running this covers a large fraction of a continent and reaches miles up into the atmosphere. A single strong thunderstorm, just one of the dozens that fired today, releases energy comparable to a large nuclear detonation. Now multiply that by an entire multi-day, multi-state siege, and add the heat energy stored in a continental dome of high pressure on top of it. The total is astronomically beyond anything human technology can produce. Not twice as much, not 10 times, but many orders of magnitude. Cloud seeding is a real technology, and all it can do is coax a little extra rain out of a cloud that already exists and is already about to rain. It cannot build a dome over half a country. It cannot stall it in place. It cannot manufacture grapefruit hail. What we are watching is an extreme but completely explainable configuration of the atmosphere, powerful, dangerous, and entirely natural. There's a second thing worth clearing up while we're here, because it's the honest, less dramatic part of the story, and you deserve it. This kind of pattern, a big stuck blocking dome that parks over one region and refuses to move, is exactly the kind of setup that a growing body of research suggests may be showing up more often. I want to be careful and straight with you. That is not settled science. Serious researchers still disagree about how strong the effect is, and anyone who tells you it's proven is getting ahead of the data. But the mechanism sitting over us right now is not in dispute. A large, amplified ridge caught in a slow atmospheric wave refusing to move, that's what turned a hot week into a multi-day siege. And learning to recognize that specific shape is how you see the next one coming before the headlines do. So here is what to actually watch over the next few days, so you're ahead of this instead of chasing it. If you're in the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, or the Northeast, tomorrow is your day. Watch whether the Storm Prediction Center raises its risk levels for your area as confidence builds. An upgrade is the tell that the outbreak is consolidating rather than falling apart. Know where you'll shelter before the sky turns, not after. Damaging wind and a few tornadoes are the threat, and these storms have already proven today that they organize fast and hit hard. If you're anywhere, the rain is training. Take the flash flood warnings as seriously as the tornado warnings. The overwhelming majority of flood deaths in this country happen in vehicles, to people who thought the water across the road was shallower than it was. If you cannot see the pavement, you do not know what's under it. Turn around. And if you're under the heat in the south and central states, the story there is the overnight lows. When the temperature doesn't drop at night, your body never gets to recover, and the strain compounds day after day. That's the mechanism behind the deadliest heat waves in American history, and it does its damage quietly, indoors, among the elderly and anyone without air conditioning. Check on the people around you who are vulnerable to it. Let me leave you with the real question underneath all of this, the one I honestly can't answer yet. This has been an exceptionally violent July across the middle and eastern United States. Storm after storm, outbreak after outbreak, all of it tied to these big, stuck, blocking patterns. Is that a fluke, an unlucky run that passes and is forgotten by September? Or is it a preview, an early legible signature of an atmosphere that's getting better and better at loading the fuel, stalling the pattern, and stacking heat and wind and water on top of one another until the whole thing parks over exactly the wrong place and refuses to move? One July doesn't answer that, but the pattern behind this July is worth learning to read, because the single most useful thing you can take from today isn't fear. It's the one idea that makes all this chaos legible. One dome, one rim, round after round, a country caught underneath it. Learn to see the dome, and you'll understand the whole siege, the part that already hit, and the part that's still coming. I'll be tracking every round of this as it develops. Stay with us and stay ready.